Workers Rights, Season 1, Episode 4. This is an independent initiative where we have discussions about the rights of workers in Belize. I am the executive producer and host, YaYa Marin Coleman. I'm a community worker and grassroots journalist. The co-host is our brother, Breda Flowers, a unionist and currently the president of the Public Service Union. Thank you, everyone, for showing up. Good night, Breda Dean.
Good night, Sister YaYa, and thanks for the privilege to continue to co-host this budding show, which is picking up some steam. The feedback are good, and I'm hoping that we'll get some other unionists and Belizean workers and laborers joining us tonight, so that in the second segment we can have that open mic, what I term the open mic session now, and basically just a whole lot of knowledge sharing.
Respect. Our guest tonight is our brother Clinton Pulu Lightburn, who is usually the star of the show. Tonight he's here because he's representing his brother who has transitioned to the spirit realm, well-known Belizean Unionist Ray Lightburn. He wrote this book known as Ray, Nothing to Lose, well-known Belizean Unionist, and Pulu was active with him for a portion of his life as a unionist. Good night, Clinton Pulu Lightburn. Your mic is not on, Pulu.
Okay, it's on, all right?
Yes, so good night, Pulu.
Greetings, Belize, and good evening.
Good, good. Let me quickly give the guidelines that I usually give at the beginning of the show, and then we'll have an intense half hour of conversations, Brother Dean and I, with Clinton Pulu Lightburn. Thank you all for showing up. Let's keep it educational and supportive. We have people here in different stages of growth, and in the spirit of collective liberation, it's important to remember attacking is a system of oppression in and of itself. Please be mindful when that comes up. The group is open for debate and healthy banter. Please keep it respectful and educational. Please enjoy this time and space with us. Do your best to come from a place of education rather than convincing. And let's commence to changing the world. That's a quote from Facebook Global Decolonization Initiative. Clinton Pulu Lightburn, could you tell us your parents' name, how many children they had, and how is it that your brother, Ray Lightburn, became a unionist?
Okay, first of all, my mother had 4 sons. And my father, he had like a dozen kids with 3 different women. Now, the way my brother became a unionist was under the influence of George Price and Bishop Kramer. Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, loud and clear, Pulu.
Okay, great. All right. Yeah. What happened is that he went to SJC. Him and my brother Stretch, and they, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, they were both high school dropouts. And I guess I need to tell you both Ray and Stretch story, because Stretch was, I would say he was like an undercover unionist. And this story has to go back before Ray with Stretch, who I just got off the phone with. And he told me that the history of the union, it began in 1949, 1950, when they devalued the Belize dollar. At that time, the Belize dollar and the US dollar had the same value. And the battle cry back then was, bring back my lion, because they had one lion for the money. And when they devalued, it looked like the lion gone. At that time, the leader of the PUP was not yet George Price. Do you know who it was? Any of you guys know who it was?
No, and guys mean men only, and our sister is here. So tell us, we don't know. Who was it?
All right. As a matter of fact, the Link Road, the road from airport to 8 miles that they call the Link Road, is named after the first leader of the People's United Party, and who was the man who was leading the fight against the devaluation of the dollar. His name was John Smith. Okay, so the link road from airport to 8 Mile is called the John Smith Road, and it's named after the first leader of the PUP, who was there in 49-50 when they devalued the dollar. And that was when the GW came to power, because it was actually the General Workers Union that the PUP sprung from. It was the birth of the PUP. And that's why the PUP up to today consider itself a party that represents the union, represents labor. Because if you notice the Westminster system, especially in the United Kingdom, there's three parties. There's the Conservative, the Tory, and Labour. In Belize, we only have two parties, and it's the, I would say at that time, the NIP was the Conservative, and the PUP was Labour. And that's a long way from where both of them are today. But that's another story. So in 1956, according to my brother Stretch, because that's the year I was born, he said he was 17 years old, and that was the year Hurricane Janet had hit Belize about 1955. And in 1956, he got a job with Bishop Hodap. Actually, he was Kramer who gave him the job. Now, if you know the history of Belize, the three most powerful Jesuits at the time was Bishop Hodap, Father Kramer, and Father Carney. Okay, there, and this is very instrumental, because this is the roots of the General Workers Union, which was the roots of the PUP, and it's going to lead to the formation of the Christian Workers Union. But according to my brother Stretch, in 1956, he was hired. Kramer gave him a job with Hodap to rebuild all the schools, the Catholic schools in the country after Hurricane Janet. All the Catholic schools from Shunuch in the north, that's the farthest point north, that's across the Corozal Bay, to Barranco down south, which is basically when you get to Barranco, you could look across the sea and see Guatemala. So this was basically from the Rio Hondo to the Sarastun. And he said they built dozens of schools out of steel. And all this while now, the Catholic Church is empowering themselves throughout the country. And it was in 1963, the year before the government, that a couple men came from St. Louis, and along with Bishop Hodap and George Price, they formed what is known today as the Christian Workers Union, which first president was Nicholas Pollard, and Ray Lightburn was the national organizer. But according to Ray Lightburn's book, within 48 hours, the members of the union had decided to make him president, and he became president of the Christian Workers Union, with Desmond Vaughan as the vice president, and a man by the name of Mike Rosado as the secretary. They had their office on George Street between Dean and the one where Jeff Scott Barber shop is. Anyway, but what happened? It was it was a war, if you want to say a war, between St. Louis and Canterbury, between the Jesuits and the Anglicans. Because remember now, Belize was a British colony, but 100 years before we were a Spanish colony until the British came in and took it. And at that time, the headquarters for the Catholic Church was in Guatemala. It was more, so the Catholic was more Spanish affiliated and Central American affiliated, unlike the Anglicans, who was more, I would say, Creole affiliated and Caribbean affiliated. So there was a thing going on. And at that time, if you were a Catholic or an Anglican, you couldn't marry within the other church. It was kind of like how the Mennonites are today. You know, it was, you know, try to stay within your religion. It was the power of the religion. As a matter of fact, my brother was telling me that when he played on the basketball team for Father Kramer, who was, they say that's the man who brought basketball to Belize. If one of the players cursed on the team, the whole team had to kneel down and say a Hail Mary. Okay, so it was, remember, the most powerful thing is that thought. So it's the mind process. So they have you within this particular mindset. So now when they found,
Pulu, we have limited time, so I want to speed up the story some.
So when they found union now, they sent Ray Lightburn out because it was self-government to shut down the whole country. Because at that time, all the leaders of all the department was an expatriate. For example, the commissioner of police was a white Englishman. The head of the lands department, and then the British control the sugar factory, they control Belize estate, they control Gallon Jug, all the land. So the whole idea, if we we're going to have independence, it was self-government was a prelude to independence, and it was basically, I guess, for us to show that we could take care of the country. Because up to then, the leader was a premier instead of prime minister. So anyway, I could remember the union shutting down the port here in Belize. It was around Christmas. The stevedores were on strike because at that time the workers were making something like, I think it was 35 cents an hour. And after they went on strike, they ended up making their salary to something like 75 cents an hour. And then we then went to Orange Walk, where the sugarcane factory was controlled by the British, and they burned the cane fleas. And with the Belizean brothers, Jesus Ken, Florence Marin. At the same time, while doing this, Ray Lightburn was also recruiting for the Pulu because these men eventually became the first cabinet. After that, they went down south, and the same thing happened with the banana and the orange. And they recruited the Zabanese and McCoy. And I could remember Ray Lightburn saying that I'm not going to Barrios go back no banana, and I didn't know what it was at the time. But eventually I ended up decades later playing basketball in Puerto Barrios. And lo and behold, in the middle of Puerto Barrios, there was a statue of a black man keeled over, carrying a bunch of banana. Unbelievable. And so this was the history of the Christian Workers Union and the experience I had with being there with my brother. So it was basically taking away the country from the expatriate and, as it was said, self-government, and putting together the People's United Party.
Pulu, what memory do you have of being with your brother as a unionist? What memory do you have, and how old were you at the time?
Well, I started out at 7 when I went to Gallon Jug. And what had happened is that we went to Gallon Jug now to shut down the lumber industry. And it was like up to now probably the biggest experience of my life, because there were so many things that I experienced, especially traveling, the modes of traveling, because at that time, you know, if you ride on a bicycle, not like you fly on a plane, because the very few people got bicycle, much less on one car. And in that time, I remember we went from my house to the municipal airport in our car, and from municipal airport to Ganjok, we fly in our plane. That's like if you're going to space today, if nobody flying a plane, and they so that me big for me, and then I end up at Gallon Jug, and we gone from Gallon Jug to New River Lagoon in a one train. But the reason we had to do that was this: we gone a Gallon Jug, and this is the memory I remember. We shut down the log for getting out of the village, because what happened? They had one train track would come from Hillbank to Gallon Jug, and I took the log from Gallon Jug to Hillbank, and they put it in a rural lagoon and tow it down. But what happened is that when the train come, it stopped at the commissary first. Where everybody have to buy their food, you get credit there, and they take it out to your pay, where you get food at the commissary, and then you get your train and get off of the train. But 100 yards down from the commissary, the train track go farther, and at the point they pick up the log. So what we do, for no hinder the progress of people getting their food and things, we burn the staves there in the boat under the train track from the commissary, from the where your food, all the way up to where the next 100 yards after that, to where pick up the log. So the train only could have gone as far as where it bring food and pick up people, but they couldn't go farther to take out the log. And they send the word to the commissioner of police, whether I'm the Englishman, and he made wait for when the plane come back to municipal airport. So the brothers in the city send the message to it. So they have to smuggle it through the back. And so we end up to go back on the train to the River Lagoon to Arrange Rock to Belize City and truck back, and from Yard Bridge back to West Street in our car.
Respect. Dean, do you have any questions you'd like to ask Pulu? The time is currently 7:16.
Yeah. So what I'm gathering here, Pulu, when I read Ray's book, and I haven't concluded the book, but help me out here. Where the Christian Workers Union is concerned, very fascinating, because it would appear that the Christian Workers Union and through Ray and his team, it would appear that they were perhaps the only, at least from the book, from what I'm gathering from the book, it would appear that they were the go-to guys in every single sector and industry. So my question is, where the other unions are concerned, were they pretty much dormant, non-existent, as they're not referred to any at all in the book? But what was unionism like outside of the CWU? Was there the existence of any other union?
Yes, they had another union which the president was Cyril Davis. I couldn't remember the name, but I figured somebody and call in with the name.
Okay.
But they were like, it was almost like they were rival unions to a certain extent, because of, I believe, the political infiltration. Because they're almost like Ray, I'm a PUP, and Cyril Davis, and then I'm an NIP. So it always, that it was hard to get away from the politics. And you got to remember that the unions being a subset of the political parties, so the political party was a subset of the churches. Because actually this whole thing started, if you go way back, you know, it was between the Catholic Church and the Anglican Church.
Okay.
Cyril Davis Union, DIU, Democratic Independence Union.
All right, Democratic Independence Union.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Brother Hubert. Yeah, so Ray, what amazes me and impressed me is that in every single industry that existed, he was called upon to mobilize. And as you stated in your introduction, from the north to the south, and then he concluded with the Dickens factory. But
not only that, at the same time, they put together the PUP party.
Yeah. Yeah, as you rightly said, indeed. Yeah, some big names get called.
All them man, when they get recruit, they can sleep down my house at Belize, they can spend the night and eat my food. That am part of him was operandi. Because he said within 24 hours, you can see one man through color. When day turn to night, you know what kind of habits that man got.
So in terms of when Ray moved from, like, he was the waterfront workers, you know, he organized them. Then call out the Galanjog. Then after Galanjog, then Kerana Mango Creek.
Mm-hmm.
Then he came back. What I'm asking here is, all of these workers in these different industries, they did not have a union. And so when Ray moved in, did they eventually all formed part of the Christian Workers Union, or it was simply to organize them and then move out?
Remember, he was national organizer turned president. And he's a master organizer.
Yeah, it appears that way, because he spoke about moving in, organizing, negotiating, putting on a strike if necessary, get the colonial masters at the table, and then just move out. And so I'm very impressed because I didn't know this was the history of the CW. You know, I had no idea that this was the history of the CW, and it amazes me to see that the CW, if we were living in a perfect world, they would actually have their hand, or should have actually had their hand in every single industry and sector across this country, because their roots was planted across this country through Ray.
Let's remember that this is Ray's perspective.
One
second, there are other perspectives as well. So when you read the other perspective, like when you read Nick Pollard Jr. input, and when you read Colonialism and Resistance in Belize, you get a more comprehensive package. So it's always remember that this is one person's perspective, valid, but one person's perspective. You are saying, Pulu?
Huh? Hello?
What were you saying?
Oh, wait, just now?
Yes.
I'm listening to you guys.
No problem. Right now it's 7:21, so you can continue with your questioning, Brother Dean.
What happened just now? Somebody called me, and somebody called from his phone, man.
Just a quick question. I have not picked up Nick Pollard's book, and we know that, I don't know, maybe Pulu could tell me this. When Nick was quote unquote overthrown for the presidency, was that, and the explanation Ray gave was that he was not popular. At least the public opinion of him was poor, and as a result, the waterfront guys there never want somebody that was unpopular leading them. And so
you remember YaYa, where your girl named that Elfrida, for we got Elfrida Reyes.
Let's be clear, she don't know a girl, she don't a grown woman, serious organizer, revolutionary. So when you listen to Sister Elfrida Reyes, give her 2 cents for what happened next level.
Sister Elfrida Reyes said the same thing, saying she never liked Nick neither. He looked like Nick never popular for truth for whatever reason.
We have to make the distinction that we're talking about Nick Pollard Sr. We have to make that distinction.
Yeah. And it happened, and I guess, and I'm telling you, it's his personality, right? Nick Pollard Sr. he had a personality that was more British than the British, so maybe that's what it was. He was so proper and so upright and okay.
Right. So there wasn't any conflict there.
No, because Nick and Ray.
Listen. According to
Ray Lightburn studied in England together, you know.
Listen to me. According to Nick Pollard Jr. on page 15, 1.3.8 political and trade union leaders fall out. The political and trade union relationship between Price and Pollard ended abruptly in 1958. Pollard was expelled from the PUP and his CDU because he was seen as a traitor supporting the British. Price was no friend of the British, a sentiment he demonstrated unambiguously regarding the 1958 visit of Princess Margaret. In 1957, he was charged in court but not convicted with sedition because of a mischievous act on the rostrum at a public meeting. He was also expelled from the official delegation during self-government talks in London and stripped of his ministerial office for allegedly plotting to sell Belize to Guatemala. On the other hand, Pollard had supported the visit of the princess and even accepted a request from the colonial secretary to stop an impending strike in Gallon Jug that was intended by the PUP to disrupt the visit.
I tell you, Pollard, I'm an Englishman. Pollard represent the British, right? And George Price represent the Jesuits, so they're not opponents. You understand? Even the personality, because, all right, you see how you see they describe Nick Pollard with British personality, and I just tell you the same when I describe her. That is the same way when they have.
Remember to make the distinction that we're talking about Nick Pollard Sr. That's important. Nick Pollard Jr. is still alive.
Nick Pollard Sr. It's the same situation. Is that when the Jesuits they have the Jesus story and so on. They got the music. Everybody play the part. That George Price play Jesus. And then,
Dean, you have a final question to ask Pulu before we close out this segment? I was asking Brother Dean if he had a final question to ask before we close out this segment.
If I had a final question?
No,
I was asking Brother Dean if he had a final question for Pulu.
Yeah, no, YaYa. I think I am good in terms of the history behind Ray and the CWU, and I am very now I realize that I really have to now take the trip over to Print Belize to get that book, because clearly I want to get a different perspective on how this thing unfolded. So,
I want to add this one.
Pulu, I have a question for ask you. Because I talk to people too. How would you respond to some quarter sentiment that Brother Ray was the muscle in the street? That him that the lead tug and tail not fall in a line and deal it on. How you respond to that?
Yes, Ray Lightburn, that made the street general for the PUP. But he never used painting that never muscle. All right? Painting that like post was called on dirty pocket. I think still in look for give one money. No, I remember the type of people like how would I describe Nick Pollard? You had like Harry Lawrence and several the governor, like people that are like pro-British. Right? Hello?
Yeah, we're hearing you.
Yeah, and then other people, like the people walk with their head up in the air like snobs, right? You know the people like their head on the air? Where we those do that parent boy from half of the corner. He does go early in the morning and finally when they go throw the bucket that canal side, he does buy the hot bucket that shit in the morning for shilling and make them boy go throw it that then gate. So when they come out the man with helping in the yard and walking like that was his muscle. And this
well, thanks to tell the truth.
I had to say, God, that's not true. This time for him muscle. And for go further, for him muscle again. He started a second newspaper for independence, for the support of independence and for Ghana independence called the Belize Tribune. That one newspaper when the rally, that time like you had the Belize Times and the Reporter and the Billboard, but the Tribune, that me one newspaper when me the lobby and push for independence for help support the for Ghana they push towards independence. And he was the manager and publisher.
Another 3 more minutes before we close out this segment, Pulu. Any final thoughts you want to share with us before we open up the space for the other participants?
I believe that all the unions in Belize should get together because they represent the laborers, the workers. For example, when the Chinese community is not happy, they could shut the country. They could shut the country down in their own way. The same thing with the Hindu community. The Mennonites could do that. So I believe we as laborers, they should represent us, and we should form a third party. No insult to PUP or UDP, but I think it would make the whole country better, and it would help distill corruption in the country. Because in Belize, only laborers go to jail, you know.
Well, from listening to you, Pulu, it sounds like I'll have to reach out to your brother Stretch for sure for make him be one of our guests because he know thing too.
Girl, he know a lot of things.
I don't know, girl. I don't know, sister.
Yeah, we have to realize though.
No. What I know is that we have to hold on the brother accountable because patriarchy is real. Yeah, that's what I realize.
I don't want you to don't say you that here for the conversation. I wish that this
I teach people how to treat me. We not business about nobody. I try to tell them what my are. But anyway, that be as it may. Make we go ahead and open up.
All right, my dear.
You want to get jokes? No, I don't know. I need that. So I don't use no term in there. I mean, with me, I know there. I mean, your sister, me don't tell you. It's 7:30. Yes, brother. One love every time. We'll go ahead and open up the floor, the space for, as Brother Dean called it, for open mic. I notice we have some of our regulars with us tonight. We have Brother Hubert, Sister Ella, Brother Patrick, Sister Aria, Sister Sandra, Sister Cynthia Musile, Brother Beresford, Brother Irvin, Brother Hubert. So people, The mic is yours. You could share your thoughts, comments, ideas based on that first half hour. Engage Pulu as much as you would like to.
For those who are with us, I just want to promote Ray's book, Ara. Sorry, YaYa. I want to promote Ray's book. I have 2 more copies, YaYa, that you sent me. I have 2 more copies. So I'm pleased to report that the sale of the books have been going well. I today announced that I had these books when I got in my bag, and I'm now left with 2. So if anybody that is on tonight would like one, I have 2 more copies with me. They're $15, and so you could contact me and I can provide a copy. Okay, Aria. Okay, I just have to let me know. I can probably get it to you, Aria.
I already have Aria 1 already. I mean, I call Aria link up personally to make them pick it up from me. I have several copies for sale as well. We don't have one lot, you know. So I better get them copies because after this, I don't know when, to my knowledge, there are no more available for sale.
Yeah, we have another unionist who just joined with Sister Jackie.
Respect. Remember to put your cameras on when you're speaking and to turn it off when you're not speaking. So participants, you're open to engage Pulu.
Yeah, I think I would like to perhaps just throw this question for those who have joined us. I want to end off, or I want to ask my question based on where Pulu ended off. He said that he believes it is time that the laborers take over back the political scene of the country, and he's calling on the unions to perhaps organize themselves and start thinking about becoming that third party, not only a regular third party, but a strong third party that perhaps can take over the running of the country. I'd like to just throw that out there to hear.
Because it's obvious the PUP are no longer the party of labor because they're in a fight with the union right now. So obviously, like my mom used to say, you can't eat your cake and have it. Hello?
So any comments on that suggestion from Brother Pulu? What's the thoughts out there? I can say that based on the recent events that unfolded over the last 3 months, that has been a common topic amongst the workers of the joint unions. So it's not a new thought. It is something that has been, in fact, out there over the last 3 months when we start this dispute.
Well, this has been my thought from I was 7 years old. PUP and UDP come for me at least 4 or 5 times for go join a party and run, and I know I run. But labor, I ready for run. Even though I barely could walk now right now.
My take on that is at this point, most of us don't even know the history of unionism. So before we get there, we have to know ourselves. And as it is, we know enough of the union, they're infiltrated by people who have loyalty to political parties. And not just that. You hear Pulu just say that's the part of how unions get started. So that's just the real, that down the road. Right now, my 2 cents is that we really need to focus on learning the history of unionism and make sure that each individual take the responsibility for know the truth and think for yourself and hold leadership accountable and yourself accountable. Anybody have their hand raised? Nobody not got nothing to say? Irvin?
I have a question.
Yes, sis.
Pulu, what you think about anybody who is in the union, instead of becoming political, becoming a party, what about the union starting to educate Belizeans about the laws, constitution? Because one lot of their arguments, and be honest, above one lot of people's head. They don't understand what that a big deal. Like some people don't understand some of the laws where they get broken. Some people don't even know we got a constitution. Some people faithful to party because they don't know better. So I think with the union being such a big force right now, they could take that time for help people learn the system and then be an effective advocacy group. What do you think?
Well, that sounds pretty interesting, but what I found out is, and I just may think about it before him start that, where the root of the power of the union there, right, is on the ground. The power of the union, right, just like I remember the strike where they talk about in Belize for self-government, started by the port on the waterfront. And I remember as a kid, I see a movie from the States with Marlon Brando with the union, and the name of it was On the Waterfront. And I guess that the mere fact that with the system we deal with trading and the commercial situation, that when the waterfront workers then go up and strike, they could shut down the whole country. All right, or that is the best place to start. So, but the thing is, for we, the workers thing, we need to unionize all the workers. The problem with is that the workers where we can't get to participate in the unions are the one there where they work with companies. Like if you work with a businessman, so if you go up and strike, you lose your job. So I guess that in the States, people, workers in general could go up and strike, or they're just government workers.
No, right now they had a big case with Amazon where the Amazon workers may try unionize. Amazon spent millions upon millions for prevent it. The thing is with it, I just feel like that the unions they're a perfect place right now for start to recruit. Well, a lot of people have to worry about their jobs right now. Amazon
never lay off nobody, though. They couldn't lay off nobody.
They were growing, then they grow, but the problem is Amazon, they were multi-billion-dollar company where they pay people minimum wage and they overwork me and stuff. So even though they never unionized, they still force Amazon for start to raise their salary and stuff as one way for prevent them from unionize.
Yeah, but what I tell you, if so now I'm not Belize, I don't Belize, they fire on and give somebody the job, you got see a crowd there right there where you're the one that mind you and going and take the job.
But that's why they said this is where the education have to come in. People
exactly.
have to understand.
Yes. And this is where my brother stretch and they tell me that Belize you have one force. We force you out. We force out people like you all because they here all the welders and the tradesmen. And he said the thing is the way the force you out is that they don't want to pay for your labor. All right? And that the oligarchical mentality, because if you look on it, tourists then go spend more time than Mexico and Guatemala when they tour the area, and they only come spend on there or two visit because they say cost of living in Belize too high and too expensive than Belize. Yet over half of the population they live below the poverty level. The numbers not the add up.
We got a lot of immigrant workers too, so they're not unionized because they're afraid of their status, and that's a part of the problem.
Exactly.
We say I have Sister Jackie has her hand raised. Sister Jackie, thanks for that exchange, Aria and Pulu. Sister Jackie, go ahead.
I want to go back to the roots. History is always very important. As Dean was telling us often around the table, one of the greatest problems our young unionists face today is education, and I don't think that they understand the dynamics of the trade union. History is an excellent speaker, and I really don't understand why unions afraid for politics the way we do, because 90% of political parties around the Caribbean and around the world were formed out of unionists. The issue is, once you walk the journey where you walk, you must know what your agenda is and not be afraid. I mean, unions interfere with issues, national and local to their own, and germane to their own bargaining unit. In terms of the education process, 100%. Brother Dean can tell you that consistently I've said, you can't take your Lee shop steward, not educate him, and then put him in a Shark Tank. Because if effectively that way they do, you're the deal with Courtney, you're the deal with Barrow, you're the deal with people who, in their mind's eye, then come for clear on corruption when they can't clear out on their own party. So the reality is education is a must. The second thing is organizations in a unions. I have been in the union movement for 33 years. And so I think I understand full well what plays on both sides of the fence. In terms of in terms of workers who are not unionists, well, there is the freedom of association. You can't force nobody. We get the Westminster system. On this side of the world, that means people have a choice. As in the case of the US, they have not even signed on to the Convention of Freedom of Association. So there are some jobs in the United States that whenever you join their organization, they tell you point blankly, we need to support no union, not near. We need to support no collective bargaining, and they cannot be forced because they have not signed on. Well, I can correct myself. They ought to be forced, but would never be forced because the US contributes much to the ILM, to the International Labour Organization. Whereas in Belize, we have signed on to that, so people have choice, and there are about 4 cases running around Belize. That is, well, not 4, but 2 cases, the Cane Farmers Association case and the case with the Bar Association. And in those cases, the fundamental right to freedom to associate is pointedly clear that you can't force nobody to join. What I have encouraged, and I know that my union, the Public Service Union, has been fighting with, is the issue of agency fee. This has been approved in Canada. In Guyana, they are still fighting through the courts to try and get it. This simply means anybody who enjoys the benefits of the union negotiation and are not members ought to be able to pay an agency fee. Just like the pay for services will get. That is still up in air because, as I said, on this side of the world, the issue is, did I request the service? And if I never request the service, then you can't come and charge me for it. In terms of education to the mass population, I feel that over the last 10 years, some of our unions have lost their purpose. For instance, the Public Service Union represents public servants, workers from municipal bodies, and statutory workers. So we have 3 bargaining units. The issue is, the objective of the union is twofold: patrimony and fair representation. Patrimony means we're going to deal with national issues. Then we have the umbrella organization, who should have been addressing every single one of these issues. The lag that I see with our unions is they can't handle all the issues where they got through at it because of the issue of organization and structure and because of education. I said
the political parties have been disorganized.
No, the political parties is not responsible. I'm sorry, I'm not going to take that.
They intimidate them.
No,
they want to take your job.
no.
A lot of people fear, you know, a lot of people out there, and they fear.
Listen to me, Pulu, fear only come when there's no education. I remember when the People's United Party came into power, I received many frantic phone calls, surprisingly, from my established public officers telling me that they're going to go home. That immediately told me that they did not understand their strength of employment on the basis of their regulations. I'm not talking about open vote workers, you know. I'm talking about established public officers who called me and indicated to me they were going home. How is it possible? You can't go home just right so. And I want to take the case of Dr. Manzanero as a perfect example. They've tried to do all kinds of things with him. He's still at the Ministry of Health. He's still there. You know why? He's an established public officer. And unless he has contravened one of those regulations and a duly appointed commission says it's time for him to go home, they can't go home. So I support ARIA wholeheartedly, and I have been preaching it to Brother Dean as the first vice, and I'm preaching it to him as the president. You must educate your people. When your people understand their strength, no government will hold them down. But that is where we are lacking, both to our membership and to the nation of Belize. That's my contribution for right now.
I wanted to say, to piggyback on that, and it's one of the things I have to say I take great pride in, that when leadership fails, instead of just holding leadership accountable, the people organize at the base and create the solutions to the challenges we have which is why we have the Belizean Workers Rights
The power of the
reasoning
union.
every Thursday night. That we not all the union in the field. They're not doing it for a long time as far as advocating and educating. No problem. So then we the people create the space, and then we have what we have right now. So salute to that, and we encourage other people, and it could be any worker. And it's true, when you become more informed and knowledgeable, then you better understand your rights and responsibilities, and quick for cover and go along with people. And then you don't know who are the people that will have the knowledge we could trust. So a lot of workers that I say right now, for example, at the call center, they don't want to unionize. But the minute they hear you unionize, because there's so much people unemployed, they could just fire you. They don't have to give no reason, and then hire somebody else. So I want to ask Jackie, what can, like, let's say the people at the call center, what I could do for really unionize? What do you advise them?
We had already made a move after the call centers. Again, yeah, come down to education. Because I think we were making very good ground when Ready Call was the first call center, and it was on New Road. And we had gotten into that call center, and we were unionizing people. And suddenly people became frightened, and the government and Chamber of Commerce decided, you know what? Make we move to whittle down ILO Convention 158 and to come up with what we came up with in Section 37 of the labor law, termination without cause. But in my humble opinion, people power, and education. It will take a process because everybody the mind named bread. So it will take a process. It will require, as a matter of course, in the National Trade Union Congress, Brother Reno and myself had written a constitution called GLOBE. It was to encompass not only call center workers, domestic workers, hairbreeders, tour guide. It's a massive constitution for those other people who don't particularly have an employer, but has contract for services with other people. And again, it will require that the unions, the National Trade Union Congress, get up and activate the educational arm and the outreach arm to bring in the membership. Because I think it was Pulu who said it, and I absolutely support it. It is time to populate. This government is not playing around. They're going to use whatever dead law is there to come against unions. So the union have to fight back by educating its people and bringing on board all that is necessary. And then the education process must be a continuous one. When you have one calm, it is not a calm for the unions. This show is an excellent show, and because it would help us to also bring and see what's happening in the Caribbean. I've managed to work with Guyana, I've managed to work with Jamaica, I've worked with different unions out there. And let me tell you, the issue is populating, density, because unions are suffering from density. That's the first problem we have. The second issue we have is even when we have some population, people are fearful. That is an indictment on us that we are not properly educating and not causing people to participate. When I used to be the president, one of the things I used to do at my membership meetings was the first thing was to ask people how they think, other than their finance, they ought to be contributing to the union. Because even the members you have now, some of them only pay their dues. They never came to a meeting. The only time you hear from them is when there's a grievance. So the education process has got to be robust. So the union need two strong committees. One, with a robust education plan, and two, the watchers of all government leaders and government and leaders' business in the country. If you can't educate and start pay attention.
Jackie, I don't think we'd get more attention if we take advantage of the internet now, and we could maybe recruit them ones who normally those kind of meetings. At least we could send the information to them.
We have employed that in PSU. We have certainly employed that in a PSU. But I think you have to go the same way how you have a public service, the same way you have a public service day and a public service week. You need to have one union week, one actual union week. Understand? That culminates on Labor Day. And when it culminates on Labor Day, I tell people, they used to laugh one time I walk around with the union farm in my back pocket as I parade through the street for 10th of September. I tell you every single day is a day to recruit a member. I don't care what we meet there. And that is the attitude we have to have if we're to unionize.
Respect. Kipla, Patrick, go ahead.
Yes, greetings, everybody. Truly enjoying this discussion.
Respect, my brother.
Just to add perspective, I'm glad we learned, Attorney Jackie said, this side of the world. Because as I always say, politics and economics married, and of course, under capitalism, there will be union busting to as far as they could carry. But over the other side of the world, there's a way they ensure they reach up to 60 to 90% of their labor force unionized. And that is by having local laws well legislate that the enterprises needs to have a certain sector percentage of their workforce unionized. Now, by putting the onus on the employer, then for the work get easier, Jackie. You understand? Because now, no, how you mean you can't do it? It's done in other countries.
You can't do it because of the freedom of association, the constitution that we have. Understand? Yes. Secondly, we have that quota law that you're talking about. It is 50+1 found in chapter 304.
So again, just to add perspective, under this system, it can't be done. But under other systems, remember, the essence of ideology which the unions needs to study is that once you say you're the labor, that not put you in a capitalism construct, you know.
Can you give me an example of where that system is that you're talking about?
Well, check out the Scandinavian countries. The onus is on the employers to make sure that they have a certain amount of their employees unionized. When you do that now, the government could actually charge the enterprises for not having that. Now look at the sweatshops there, the call centers. They need to be unionized, but they could get away with murder right now, the way how, you know, then pick off the first 5 people and say they try organize 50%+1, because that is the problem, Pulu. You need to have 50%+1 to engage in a collective bargaining agreement. You know, say you are CWU or whoever represents you, or form your own union. But I'm saying that I have been actively behind the scene trying to encourage people to organize by sector, which is the way they do it in the Scandinavian countries. And then the government no need to box for you know, for the purpose out of hand by saying, we set minimum wage. Like, oh, I love how you said instead of ratifying ILO 158, they just amend section 37 of the labor laws, you know, and say, well, oh, we don't need ILO 158 again. So
correction, they ratify it. What they haven't done is bring it into the force of law, and that is strength. And in my humble opinion, those are the things that unions need to organize and get behind.
So it has
so Jackie, how can we do that?
To get it enacted.
So this is what I'm saying.
Get out on the street.
Jackie, listen to me. This is what I'm asking. I agree that the unions ought to do it, but at this point, I'm not waiting for the unions to do it. I'm asking, what would it take to have a Zoom workshop to teach us, the people that want to write you, what we need for make it happen? Where you take for that happen?
No problem. You want to have a Zoom workshop? Tell me an adequate date we have the workshop. You said something that, where Patrick said something that I want to expand on. I studied in Italy. Italy, for the most part, now a socialist country. And of course, I was studying, so I was going to go visit their unions and to see how they do business. And the only thing the government has there is the government say to companies get a kickback if they unionize a lot of their people. The best country in Europe with unions and collective bargaining agreements is Germany. And that's why I asked you to give me an example of countries.
I wasn't using Europe. I said Scandinavia.
Now yes. I'm only showing you an example because that you've said Scandinavian. I'm going to study that law. Yeah. I'm going to study the law. You see what I'm saying? But I'm just saying how they get density in Europe. But if you research all of the Caribbean, understand me? And other unions in the United States, with the exception of AFL-CIO, which is one of the biggest unions after the Teamsters in the United States, you will find that even the sectorial industries are struggling. And they're struggling because you have IFIs saying, when you have unions, you have economic problem. Because they want to pay raise, they want to say allowance, you understand me? They don't see welfare, they see economics. And that creates an issue. Whereas in Belize, again, everything in my mind starts with education, because if as a person, you understand your strength and when you come to the table, no minister can walk in our office and tell you, please go home. Get up from your desk and go home because I don't want to work with you. No minister can do that. Instead, as a group, as a united group, would be a force to reckon with. Look at the OSH bill. We pick up the OSH bill, we sit down back. But isn't the OSH bill affecting construction workers? Isn't it affecting store workers who don't have properly sanitary bathroom? Shouldn't then the Trade Union Congress should not be resting? We should not be resting until we get that bill. So if you mean we shut down every store on Albert Street, then we shut down every store on Albert Street. If you mean we go crowd up the House of Representatives, then we crowd up the House of Representatives. We stay on it, we stay on it, we stay on it, we stay on it, we stay on it. We go to House committees. Today's union people don't go to House committees. In my time as president, I only want to hear a House committee happen. And I direct this up. We don't go to House committees anymore. We have to participate in this democracy if we are to see changes.
Respect. Let me ask, is there anybody who has not spoken yet who would like to say something before we sign out? The time is currently 7:56 and we should log off at 8 o'clock. Anyone would like to say something before we sign off?
Yeah, hello, good night. I don't know if you can see me. What happened in this place? I have a very dark man, so I want to beg an excuse that I don't know if you can see me. That.
You the con that is long enough for no say about the lighting now. No. I want to give one pass tonight, but not come back with no lighting excuse, Brother Hubert.
All right, I'll get a ring light or whatever it is. Hey, good night. Listen, I listened this weekend to a program like Sista YaYa and Breda Pulu. Very interesting program. In fact, one of the points which he raised was the question of the unions and the struggle that they had, and they were pretty much affiliated with the church or perhaps the political party and so forth, and that was really a part of their success in those days. And in fact, when I look at what happened with PSU, because I believe that PSU at its height was at its height sometime in 1981 when there was that strike in the heads of agreement. And it is my opinion that in fact what happened there was that the opposition had been perhaps they were very, very disorganized, and the union seemed to have assumed a political role to a certain extent. In fact, even at the end of the day, it's my understanding that the unions were the ones, or at least the PSU was the one who was able to, who sat down in the meetings to discuss independence and wrote the constitution.
Yes,
and
Bill Tillett, Dickie Bradley, and Roland Parks.
Yes. And so what it seems to point to then is the fact that there is some connection we need to make with politics if we are going to be effective in our fight, because it's a big fight and already our fight with ourselves. We have to get involved somehow or the other to bridge the gap.
But
so that in fact our voice is heard, because right now truly nobody else wait for grind, and we have to somehow react. But we have seen good days with the union and PSU. In fact, I suppose I need to somehow write something, because I recall very clearly that even in those times when the UDP won that first election, they won in 1984. The PSU, they were able to do several things, including, for instance, the 5-day work week. There was, in my opinion, an affiliation with the union and the UDP, and things happened during that time. Like, for instance, the 5-day work week was quickly introduced. The road was paved to Belize to Belopan, because there was a third part of the road which was very, very bad, and immediately after they got power, there was civil servants who used to drive up and down to Belopan to Belize City, were very much not happy about the road, and it was quickly paved. And then there was issues having to do, like, for instance, with several persons who got positions. Like, for instance, the person who worked in PSU office, Ms. B. King Smith, became the chairperson of the Public Service Commission. So and Bill Tillett, of course, again, he was also became a permanent secretary. So I think those things need to be reflected on, and to see what happened then, and I believe we could find some sense in what happened, to see how we can move forward down the road. No, so that's just my contribution for today. Thanks.
So you have to go ahead and sign out now, because I'm sorry, Paula, we sign out right at 8. I tell her this about this last minute thing. But but you can join us next week. Everybody could join us next week. Thank you so much for being our guest tonight, Pulu. Thanks everybody who participated, and we can pick up this conversation next week. We'll still be looking at the history
public
of
service lost its power
in Belize.
when they replaced the public office, the public permanent secretaries with CEOs. That's all I want to say.
All right, everyone, thanks for joining us so much. We appreciate it.
Yes.
Everyone, have a good night.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us.
Good night, everybody. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Sister Perez. We appreciate all the technical support.
I need to remind you of the rules. When you're not speaking, take off your camera. We don't need to see what is in your background.
Okay, co-host Dean.
I need to remind the business.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Thanks.